Zixtal's iridescent scales shimmered under the golden light of Aridus' sun as he turned to face the group of wide-eyed tourists. His 7 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture that had become a habit over his 3,000 years of life. The hover platform hummed softly beneath their feet, keeping them suspended above the rust-colored dunes that stretched to the horizon. "Welcome, esteemed visitors," Zixtal's melodious voice reverberated through their universal translators. "You are about to witness a miracle that has reshaped not just this world, but our understanding of what is possible in this vast universe." He gestured with one of his 4 arms towards the distant, shimmering mirage on the horizon. 50 years ago, this world was known as Aridus, the devourer of hope. For millennia, it resisted all attempts at colonization. The Zk-Thari lost an entire expedition here. The Volux Confederation declared it uninhabitable after a decade of failed terraforming. Even the vaunted Glix Empire, with all their biological mastery, could not coax life from these sands. Zixtal paused, letting the weight of history sink in. The tourists murmured among themselves, their various appendages gesticulating in signs of awe and disbelief. And then Zixtal continued, his voice dropping to a near whisper. The humans arrived. He closed his eyes, remembering that day as if it were yesterday. The massive arc ships descending from the skies, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. The ramps lowering to disgorge not armored explorers or shielded scientists, but beings that looked so fragile, so unprotected against the harsh environment. "I was here, Zixtal said, opening his eyes to regard the tourists. A junior xenoanthropologist, assigned to observe yet another failed attempt at taming Aridus. I remember laughing, when I saw them step out onto the sands without environment suits." He shook his head, mandibles clicking in remembered embarrassment. They should have died within minutes. The air was toxic, the heat unbearable, the radiation levels lethal to most known life forms. But the humans, they smiled. They breathed deeply. They walked upon the sands as if they were strolling through a garden. The hover platform began to move, gliding silently over the dunes towards that shimmering mirage on the horizon. Zixtal continued his tale. "The humans brought machines, yes, but not the massive terraformers we expected. They brought tools for digging, for sampling, for measuring. Preliminary surveys, they called it, as if transforming a planet was as simple as building a dwelling." He gestured to a cluster of metallic structures half buried in the sand. "There you see the remains of one of their first base camps. When they built it, we all thought it would be their tomb. The Galactic Council even prepared a formal reprimand for Earth, for sending its children to die on this forsaken world." The tourists leaned over the edge of the platform, various visual organs straining to capture images of the ancient human structure. "But die they did not," Zixtal said, his voice filled with wonder even after 5 decades. "They thrived. They worked tirelessly under the scorching sun. They delved deep into the planet's crust, speaking of aquifers and mineral compositions with the casualness of discussing the weather." As the platform crested a particularly large dune, the mirage on the horizon began to solidify into a tantalizing glimpse of green. "Esteemed visitors," Zixtal said, his voice swelling with emotion, "you are about to see the impossible made real. For what lies ahead is no mirage, no trick of the light. It is the result of human determination, of a power so profound that many of us still struggle to comprehend it." The platform picked up speed, racing towards that patch of green. As they approached, the tourists gasped in unison. What had seemed a small oasis from afar revealed itself to be the edge of a vast expanse of vegetation. Trees, grasslands, flowing streams of vibrant, living ecosystem emerging from the desert like a vision from a fever dream. Zixtal turned to face the group, spreading his 4 arms wide. "Behold the truth that has shaken the galaxy to its core. Humans are not mere mortals fumbling their way across the cosmos. They are shapers of worlds, breathers of life, transformers of reality itself." His eyes gleamed with a mix of awe and something akin to fear. "Humans, my dear visitors, humans are gods." And this, he gestured to the lush landscape now surrounding them. "This is only the beginning of their story." The platform settled gently on a grassy hill overlooking a crystal-clear lake. In the distance, the skyscrapers of a gleaming city pierced the sky. Alien birds soared overhead, their calls mixing with the rustling of leaves in the warm breeze. Zixtal smiled at the wonder-struck faces of his group. Now, shall we explore this miracle up close? After all, we have only begun to scratch the surface of humanity's greatest magic trick, turning hell into heaven in the blink of a cosmic eye. Zixtal led his group through the lush parkland, their varied appendages brushing against leaves and flowers that, by all rights, shouldn't exist on this once barren world. He paused before a holographic display showing a time lapse of the surrounding area over the past 50 years. "Observe," he said, activating the display. The verdant landscape around them shimmered and transformed, rewinding to a vast expanse of red desert. This is where it all began. The tourists watched in fascination as holographic humans appeared, setting up equipment and digging into the sand. The first decade was all about laying foundations, Zixtal explained. The humans called it preliminary terraforming to the rest of us. It looked like madness. He manipulated the display, zooming in on a group of humans huddled over what appeared to be a simple drilling rig. They started with water, not by importing it, as many races had tried before, but by finding it. The hologram showed the drilling rig piercing deep into the planet's crust, far deeper than any previous expedition had managed. Humans have an almost mystical ability to find water, Zixtal continued, his voice filled with wonder. They discovered vast underground aquifers that had eluded our most sophisticated scanning equipment, but finding the water was only the beginning. The display shifted, showing an intricate network of underground reservoirs and pipelines spreading across the planet like veins. They built a planet-wide hydraulic system, Zixtal said. Not to bring the water to the surface, not yet, but to begin the process of cycling it through the planet's crust. This was the first step in transforming not just the surface, but the entire biosphere of Aridus. As the group moved on, they came across a structure that seemed out of place amidst the greenery, a hermetically sealed greenhouse, its walls clouded with age. "Ah, this is a true relic," Zixtal said, his eyes blinking in sequence. In the early years, these dotted the landscape. But these weren't for growing plants, at least not primarily. These were bacteria farms. He beckoned the group closer to peer through a small, clear section of the wall. Inside, rows of ancient equipment were visible, their purposes unclear to the alien observers. The humans seeded the planet with specialized bacteria, Zixtal explained. Engineered life forms designed to alter the very chemistry of the soil. Some fixed nitrogen, others broke down minerals to release trapped water molecules. It was terraforming on a microscopic scale. As they moved on, Zixtal's voice took on a tone of amusement. Of course, not everyone was impressed at first. I remember the ZK-Thari ambassador dismissing the entire project as pointless digging and playing with dirt. The tour arrived at what appeared to be an old human settlement, now mostly reclaimed by the flourishing ecosystem. However, one building stood out, a museum dedicated to the early days of the project. Inside, Zixtal guided the group to a display showcasing the first plants to grow on Aridus. Tough, scraggly things, more lichen than proper plants, but to the eyes of the alien tourists, they might as well have been miracles given physical form. These first appeared about 8 years into the project, Zixtal said softly. I remember the day clearly. A human scientist called me over, so excited she could barely speak. There, in a small, sheltered valley, these tiny organisms had taken root. Proof that life could indeed flourish on Aridus. He turned to the group, his eyes shimmering with emotion. You must understand, for millennia, we had defined the boundaries of possibility. We knew what could and couldn't be done. And yet, here were these humans, casually rewriting the laws of nature, as if they were merely suggestions. As they exited the museum, the group found themselves on a hilltop overlooking a vast plain. In the distance, massive structures rose from the Earth atmospheric processors that dwarfed anything the alien visitors had seen before. The first decade laid the groundwork, Zixtal said, gesturing towards the colossal machines. Water, bacteria, the first tendrils of life. All of this was just preparation. As we entered the second decade, the humans were ready to reshape the sky itself. He turned to the group, his alien features set in an expression of reverence. But that, my friends, is a tale for another leg of our journey. For now, let us pause and reflect on what we've learned. In just 10 years, humans had accomplished what our greatest minds had deemed impossible for eons, and they were just getting started. Zixtal looked up at the sky, where the first hints of blue were beginning to show through the rusty haze. They were laying the foundation not just of an ecosystem, but of a new understanding of our place in the universe. For in the face of such power, such determination, were we not all, in comparison, merely children playing at creation? The alien tourists followed his gaze, their minds struggling to comprehend the scale of the transformation they were witnessing. The impossible was not just possible, it was happening all around them, a testament to the godlike power of humanity. Zixtal's tour group stood at the base of a colossal structure that seemed to pierce the very sky. The atmospheric processor towered above them, its massive intakes drawing in the rusty air of Aridus and expelling a noticeably clearer, bluer atmosphere. "Behold," Zixtal said, his voice filled with awe despite having seen this sight countless times, "the breath of God." Or at least, that's what many of us called it when the humans first activated these machines. He manipulated a holographic display, showing the planet as it was 20 years ago. The atmosphere was a thick, rusty haze, hostile to most forms of life. Then, with a gesture, he fast-forwarded the simulation. The group watched in amazement as the air gradually cleared, taking on a more Earth-like appearance. The humans called this atmospheric recomposition, Zixtal explained. These processors don't just filter the air, they fundamentally alter its chemical makeup. They increase the oxygen content, adjust the greenhouse gas levels to trap more heat and moisture, and filter out harmful particulates. One of the tourists, a gaseous being contained within a transparent sphere, pulsed with curiosity. But surely it bubbled. Such a dramatic change would cause catastrophic weather patterns. Zixtal's eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of approval at the insightful question. One would think so, wouldn't it? That's certainly what our best meteorological models predicted. But the humans? He paused, mandibles clicking in what the tourists had come to recognize as a gesture of amazement. The humans controlled the process with a precision that bordered on the arcane. They didn't just change the atmosphere, they choreographed its transformation. The tour moved on, approaching the shore of a vast inland sea that stretched to the horizon. The water sparkled under the clearer sky, its surface rippling with gentle waves. "This," Zixtal said, gesturing grandly, "is the miracle of Poseidon. 20 years ago, this was all sand and rock." He activated another holographic display, showing the creation of the sea in time-lapse. The tourists watched as human machines carved out a massive basin, then as water began to fill it from underground sources. But filling it with water was just the beginning, Zixtal continued. "Observe." The hologram zoomed in, showing the water teeming with microscopic life. "Genetically engineered algae," he explained, "designed to thrive in the unique conditions of Aridus and to rapidly oxygenate the water. But more than that, these algae were the first links in an entirely new food chain." As if on cue, a school of fish-like creatures leapt from the water, their scales glinting in the sunlight. The tourists gasped in delight. "Introduced just 5 years after the sea's creation," Zixtal said, his voice filled with pride as if he himself had accomplishing this feat. "The humans didn't just create a body of water, they engineered an entire aquatic ecosystem from scratch." The tour continued along the shoreline, where the group saw the remains of early human habitations. Unlike the temporary structures of the first decade, these were more permanent, designed to house the growing number of terraforming experts and support staff. As the atmosphere changed and the first seas formed, something remarkable happened, Zixtal said, pausing for effect. It rained. He let that sink in for a moment before continuing. The water cycle, dormant for eons, began anew. With rain came rivers, with rivers came erosion, and with erosion came the first true soils of Aridus. The holographic display showed the spread of vegetation, starting from the shores of the new seas and following the paths of newly formed rivers. The humans didn't fight the desert, Zixtal explained. They worked with it, using the natural topography of the land to guide the spread of water and life. They called it terraforming with the grain of the planet. As the tour reached a viewpoint overlooking a vast plain, The group could see the dramatic contrast between the still desert areas and the growing regions of vegetation. The boundary between them was not sharp, but a gradual transition, a front line in the war against the desert. By the end of the second decade, Zixtal said, his voice solemn, it was undeniable. Aridus was changing. The impossible was happening before our very eyes. He turned to the group, all 7 of his eyes focusing on them intently. It was at this point that the galactic community truly began to take notice. The ZK Thari, who had mocked the project initially, now sent scientific delegations. The Volux Confederation officially retracted their declaration of Aridus as uninhabitable, and the Glix Empire, well, they were unusually quiet. Zixtal's mandibles clicked in amusement. I think they were trying very hard to pretend they weren't impressed. But we all knew the truth. We were witnessing something unprecedented, something that shook the very foundations of our understanding of planetary science. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple that would have been impossible in the old atmosphere of Aridus, Zixtal led the group to their lodgings for the night, a recreation of one of the human habitations from that era. Rest well, he told them. For tomorrow we venture into the 3rd decade of the transformation. We will see how this fledgling biosphere exploded into a riot of life and diversity. And perhaps we will begin to truly understand the incredible, terrifying power that humanity wields so casually. As the alien tourists settled in for the night, many found themselves unable to sleep, their minds buzzing with the implications of what they had seen. Outside, a gentle rain began to fall, each drop a testament to the godlike power of the beings who had reshaped this world. As the twin suns of Aridus rose over the horizon, Zixtal led his group into a lush forest that seemed to defy reality. Towering trees with iridescent leaves stretched towards the sky, their branches home to a cacophony of alien birdsong. The air was thick with the scent of unfamiliar blossoms and rich, fertile soil. Welcome, Zixtal said, his voice hushed with reverence, to the Garden of New Eden. 20 years ago, this was all barren wasteland. Now, it stands as testament to the profound power of human bioengineering. He gestured towards a holographic display that materialized among the trees. It showed a time lapse of the forest's growth, trees sprouting and maturing at an impossible rate. The humans didn't just plant trees, Zixtal explained. They reshaped the very essence of life itself. These organisms were engineered to thrive in Aridus's unique conditions, growing at rates that defied conventional biology. As they walked deeper into the forest, the group encountered a clearing where a team of human scientists worked alongside alien researchers. They were gathered around a pool teeming with small, colorful creatures. Ah, the famous iridian pollinators, Zixtal said. These little marvels were introduced in the early part of the 3rd decade. Observe their iridescent wings, designed to maximize energy absorption from our binary star system. One of the tourists, a crystalline being that communicated through light pulses, flashed a question. Zixtal nodded in understanding. An excellent observation, he replied. Yes, the introduction of these pollinators marked a crucial turning point. With their arrival, the ecosystem began to self-perpetuate and diversify at an exponential rate. The tour continued, emerging from the forest into vast agricultural lands. Fields of crops unlike anything the aliens had seen before stretched to the horizon, tended by autonomous machines that moved with eerie precision. Human settlements had been present since the beginning, Zixtal explained, but it was during these decades that they truly began to expand. These farms produce enough food to sustain millions, all engineered to thrive in Aridus's still harsh environment. As they watched, a herd of large, 6-legged herbivores emerged from a nearby stand of trees to graze on the alien crops. The tourists murmured in excitement. Introduced in the 4th decade, Zixtal said, the humans call them neo-bison. They play a crucial role in shaping the grassland ecosystems, much like their Earth counterparts did millions of years ago. The group then approached a human city that seemed to grow organically from the landscape. Living buildings of engineered plants intertwined with advanced materials, creating a seamless blend of nature and technology. Behold, New Babylon, Zixtal announced, a city that breathes, that grows, that lives in harmony with the world around it. The humans didn't just transform the wilderness, they reimagined urban life itself. As they toured the city, the aliens saw humans and other galactic species living and working together. Schools, research centers, and cultural exchanges were everywhere. It was during these decades that Aridus truly became a melting pot, Zixtal explained. The success of the terraforming project attracted scientists, adventurers, and colonists from across the galaxy. Many came to learn, others to start a new life on this reborn world. Their final stop was a weather control center, where they watched humans fine-tuning the planet's climate in real time. The fourth decade saw the establishment of stable weather patterns, Zixtal said. Monsoon cycles, jet streams, ocean currents, all carefully orchestrated to maintain the delicate balance of the new ecosystem. As the day drew to a close, Zixtal brought the group to a clifftop overlooking a vast savanna. In the distance, herds of diverse alien animals moved across the plain, predators and prey engaged in the eternal dance of life. 40 years ago, this was all lifeless desert, Zixtal said softly. Now, it teems with more biodiversity than many naturally evolved worlds. The humans didn't just transform Aridus, they created an entirely new biosphere, one more vibrant and resilient than we ever thought possible. He turned to the group, his 7 eyes gleaming with emotion. But even this miracle pales in comparison to what came next. For in the final decade, humanity would reveal the true extent of their power, and with it, shake the very foundations of our galactic civilization. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues no one had thought possible on this once barren world, the alien tourists found themselves filled with a mix of awe, excitement, and just a touch of fear. For if this was what humans could achieve in 4 decades, what other wonders or terrors might they be capable of? Zixtal smiled enigmatically, sensing their thoughts. Rest well, my friends. Tomorrow we witness the culmination of humanity's great work, and perhaps we shall finally understand what it means to walk among gods. The final day of the tour dawned with a sense of anticipation. Zixtal led his group to a sleek, anti-gravity platform that rose silently into the air, climbing higher and higher and higher until Aridus spread out beneath them like a living map. Behold, Zixtal said, his voice filled with emotion, the miracle in its entirety. From this height, the transformation was breathtaking. Vast oceans glittered in the light of the twin suns, their shorelines teeming with life. Lush forests and sweeping grasslands carpeted what had once been endless deserts. Great rivers snaked across the landscape, their waters life-giving arteries for the reborn world. 50 years, Zixtal mused. 50 years to turn hell into heaven, to create a thriving biosphere where none existed before, to make the impossible not just possible but reality. The platform descended, coming to rest on the pinnacle of a gleaming spire in the heart of New Babylon. The alien tourists gasped as they realized the entire city was laid out in a pattern reminiscent of a massive circuit board. This, Zixtal explained, is the planetary control center. From here, humans and their alien partners monitor and fine-tune every aspect of Aridus's ecosystems, weather patterns, tectonic stability, atmospheric composition, all managed with godlike precision. He led them inside, where holographic displays showed real-time data from across the planet. Humans worked alongside a diverse array of alien species, their movements choreographed with practiced efficiency. The final decade saw the introduction of keystone species, Zixtal continued. Creatures engineered to fill crucial ecological niches, stabilizing the entire biosphere. With their release, the humans declared the terraforming project complete. One of the tourists, a hive-mind collective of tiny insectoid creatures, formed a question mark shape. But surely it buzzed, such a complex system requires constant maintenance. Zixtal's eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of approval. An insightful observation. Yes, the ecosystem of Aridus is not yet self-sustaining in the way naturally evolved worlds are. It will require careful management for centuries to come. But, he added, mandibles clicking in amusement, the humans seem to view this as a feature, not a bug. They speak of iterative improvements and adaptive management strategies, as if reshaping a planet were no more challenging than tending a garden. As the group made their way through the control center, they passed a section dedicated to what appeared to be future projects. The tourists murmured in confusion and growing awe as they realized the scope of what they were seeing. Zixtal paused, his 7 eyes focusing intently on the group. And now, my friends, we come to the greatest revelation of all, one that has shaken the galaxy to its core. He gestured to a galactic map where countless stars were highlighted in green. Aridus is not unique, it is not special, it is merely average. The tourists' confusion grew, some expressing disbelief. Zixtal continued, his voice solemn. What you have witnessed here, this miraculous transformation that has occupied the finest minds of our civilization for generations, is to humans routine. They call it terraforming the shaping of worlds, and they have done it not once, not 100 times, but tens of thousands of times across the galaxy. A stunned silence fell over the group. Zixtal let the implications sink in before continuing. Each green star on this map represents a world transformed by human hands. Barren rocks turned to garden paradises. Toxic hellscapes reformed into thriving biospheres. Gas giants given solid surfaces and atmospheres. He turned to face the group fully, his alien features set in an expression of awe and just a touch of fear. We thought we knew the shape of the possible. We thought we understood the limits of science and nature. But humanity has no limits. They do not see boundaries, they see only challenges. They do not accept impossibility, they see only problems awaiting solutions. Zixtal led the group back to the observation deck, where Aridus spread out before them in all its transformed glory. Look upon this world, my friends. See its oceans, its forests, its teeming life, and know that to humanity, this is not a miracle. It is Tuesday. He paused, letting his words sink in. We stand at a crossroads of history. Humanity has revealed itself not as fellow travelers in the cosmos, but as shapers of it. They do not merely inhabit the galaxy, they remake it in their image. The twin suns began to set, casting the transformed world in an ethereal light. Zixtal's voice took on a tone of both wonder and warning. As you return to your homes, spread across the stars, I ask you to consider this. If this is what humanity can do to lifeless worlds, what might they do to our living ones? Are we witnessing the dawn of a new era of galactic prosperity, or the rise of an uncontrollable force of nature? He turned to the group one last time, his 7 eyes gleaming. Humanity calls themselves explorers, scientists, pioneers, but we have seen the truth. Humans are not merely another spacefaring race. Zixtal spread his 4 arms wide, encompassing the vista of the transformed world below and the star-studded sky above. Humans are gods, and the galaxy will never be the same. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you loved it. Please remember to subscribe if you did like it so you can see more videos like this. And please give us a like and a comment too. I'll see you in the next one.